Iceland, originally founded by the Vikings, sounds like a land of cold winters and ice, when in reality it is a flourishing country with a very vibrant culture. The location, history, and value of tradition has resulted in unique cuisines and customs and a strong culture with an emphasis on fishing and literature. When people think of Iceland, they often think of the Iceland versus Greenland name switch to confuse newcomers because Iceland is actually more green than Greenland. Or I know a lot of students like to combine the Northern European cultures. That's why I wanted to do extensive research through databases, articles, visual aids on Iceland's specific culture. Now, there are many aspects of Icelandic culture, and unfortunately I can't include them all, but I wanted to make an emphasis on fishing and the cuisines and foods that resulted from fishing being a main tradition, and I wanted to touch on their emphasis on traditional literature, specifically Icelandic sagas. Iceland is the second largest European island and has many lakes and rivers, and therefore fishing has always been a main part of the economy, has resulted in many cuisines, and a main activity. Fishing is both a pastime and a source of food, and has become sort of a tourist attraction as well. Fishing in Iceland, Your Ultimate Fishing Guide, a blog by Icelandic travel guide, reminds you to get an Iceland fishing card in order to fish in over 35 of the lakes in Iceland, and it mentions many of the fish you could get, such as Atlantic cod, halibut, pollock, trout, and mackerel. I have personally only tried halibut, but that was pretty good. Now, Iceland has lots of lakes and rivers. However, the blog notes that saltwater or ocean fishing is a popular traditional type of fishing done by Icelandic natives. Now that you know that fishing has always been sort of a tradition in Iceland, the question is, what do you do with all the fish that you've caught? Well, Britannica lists some of the main dishes traditionally given in Iceland, such as hakarl, which is putrefied shark, and gravlax, which is salmon marinated in salt and dill. To summarize the culture surrounding fishing, I've included a little fun video which emphasizes Fisherman's Day in Iceland.
The first Sunday of June has a special meaning for all Icelanders. Ever since 1938, Sjómannadagurinn, the Day of the Fisherman, has been celebrated in every fishing village across Iceland. It is the day when fishermen and all other members of the community get together to celebrate the history and culture of the Icelandic fishermen.
The next aspect of Icelandic culture that I'd like to touch on is literature, specifically the famous Icelandic sagas regarding the Vikings. Traditionally, they were spread orally and through storytelling, and later they were written down and recorded for historical purposes. Thordarson, who maintains sagadb.org, and which is an Icelandic saga database, says the sagas are prose histories describing events that took place amongst the Norse and Celtic inhabitants of Iceland during the period of Icelandic Commonwealth. Essentially, the sagas were a primary way in order to piece together Icelandic history. In background notes of countries of the world, it says the sagas, almost all written between 1180 and 1300 AD, remain Iceland's best-known literary accomplishments, and the saga writers sought to record their heroes' great accomplishments and glorify virtues of courage, pride, and honor, meaning the sagas generally center around their ancestors, heroine, and history. However, they also include mythology and love. Britannica mentions that the sagas often include the gods and goddesses of ancient Norse and pantheon. They also include love triangles, lots of love stories, and passion. They remind me a lot of the Greek epics, such as the Odyssey. However, the Greek epics had more of a moral story to them, versus the Icelandic sagas center more around the virtues of their heroes and ancestors. Next, I've included a few pictures that were based off of the Icelandic sagas. To summarize, I wanted to primarily share Icelandic traditional love for fishing and the cuisines that resulted from it, and their emphasis on literature, and their historical sagas. However, there are many aspects to Icelandic culture, including festivals, music, and art. I wanted to thank you so much for listening. I know that I couldn't touch on many of the aspects of Icelandic culture, but I hope my introduction to a little bit of Icelandic culture persuades you to do more research on the country.